So we figured out that for under $300, you can buy all the equipment you need to make a nice video, assuming you know how to line things up, light them, frame them, and that's what we're going to talk about next, is composing the shot. The rule of threes, I'm going to talk about two different examples of what the rule of threes mean. Rule of threes, the rule of thirds, it's about composing your shot and also getting footage. In this case, we're talking about composing the shot, usually for an interview, when you have a human subject in front of you. Whenever you're looking at the screen, break it into thirds, vertically and horizontally. So you have, a third here, third here, third here, third here. And what you want to do then is line your subject up based on those thirds. You want the eyes, face, mouth, this area, centered roughly on that upper third. You want the head centered on this third to the left in this case, because they're looking to, well, I guess their left. So I guess this would be your right. And you always want space in front of the subject. If it's an interview, you want space in front of the subject. If you're taking footage of someone and they're running or biking or snowshoeing or doing whatever it may be, you want to try to keep space in front of them wherever they're going. Because naturally, people are looking in this direction. He's looking in this direction. People are moving in that direction. When someone walks by, you don't watch what's behind them. You follow them, or maybe follow what's in front of them. That's just kind of the natural thing to do. It's what the human eye does. So you break it up into thirds. You put the person on one of the lines based on where they're looking. Since he's looking in this direction, you want more space on this side. If he was over here, you'd want more on this side. And then when you're lining your shot up, it helps if you have something over here to look at. In this case, this is from that Science of Watchmen film. We have a physics equation that he wrote on the board. It adds a little bit to it. If you know physics, it probably adds a lot to it. But it gives people something to look at there. B-roll, also known as footage. It should match up with whatever you're showing, whatever you're talking about. So here's the rule of threes part 2, and this is how it pertains to getting your footage. Here's one really pretty picture, but you don't want to put a shot up for 30 seconds in a video. You want some movement. You want different images. So how can you take where you're standing right here and get several shots out of this one really pretty image? Well, you take 3 shots of it. You start with a wide shot. You set the scene. You show everybody where you are. You give everyone the big picture, so to speak. Then you move down to something else that kind of catches your eye. Well, out of that big wide shot, the skyline in Minneapolis looked pretty cool. So you zoom in about halfway, and you focus on one aspect of that wide shot. Still a pretty big, especially in this case, it's a cityscape, still a pretty big scene, but a different shot. And then you get on something really tight, and maybe maybe you're saying, the city of Minneapolis lights up beautifully on a summer night. On a warm July evening, there's almost nothing better than the view of the skyline. But the scoreboard, that's where it's at Target Field. So you see how we could have said all of that using just this. Everything's in there. You can see the city, you can see the scoreboard. But that's a lot of dead time where you're not moving people along. But if you break it up by doing a wide shot, a medium shot, and a tight shot, all from one location. You're hitting record and stop 3 different times and zooming in on different levels. You can provide movement throughout the video that you're shooting by giving different perspectives. So two different rules of threes. The rule of thirds, I guess, is when you're breaking the screen into thirds when it comes to how you want to center the subject of the footage. And then the other rule of threes is just wide, medium, tight. The brightest source of light, whether it's the sun, a lamp, a spotlight, whatever it may be, should be at your back, and your back being the camera. The person who's shooting the footage have the brightest source of light behind you, shooting forward, essentially directly into the face of whatever it is you're shooting, whether it's a building, a person, an animal. It's sometimes an uncomfortable thing because a lot of times you'll be outside, and on a bright sunny day, the only option you have is the sun. People don't want to look into the sun. It's tough. Try to keep it so they're not looking directly into the sun, but relatively in front of them, always behind you holding the camera. The most basic thing. And if you're in a situation where that's not the case, if you have a really nice looking shot but the sun's behind them, whatever it is, don't shoot it move. Because what you're going to end up having is, let's say there's just a beautiful landscape outside this window. and it's a huge picture window, and you're in here, and you're like, well, we got to set this up so we can see the beautiful landscape behind that person. There's absolutely no way you're going to be able to light well enough in front of them with a bright outdoor setting, and what will end up happening is it'll look like in the witness protection program, because it'll be just a black silhouette. So you have this beautiful background, you might get a great interview, but none of it will be usable, so you might as well not even have shot it, you know. All you have is a wall behind you, but you might as well turn that person around so that the bright window is in front of them and behind you, so at least you can see the subject and then use the video. Like I said, unless you're trying to protect their identity. Here's a good example of a sunny day. She's not looking directly into the sun. It's probably a little bit off to her left, but it's still in front of her. And it's another way to look at the rule of threes, too. I mean, obviously her head is over on this third. You know, in front of her is what she's looking at, so you have the majority, 2/3 of the screen is in front of her, a third behind her. You know, you're not going to get any of her body because it's a really tight shot, but kind of the focal point, you know, it's usually a face if it's zoomed out more. In this case, it's zoomed in. Focal point right on her eyes, still in that upper third.